What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Kevin here. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance, and we're going to talk about its relation to monetary policy and altcoin outperformance via altcoin season, right? The thing that everybody wants. So this is going to be really interesting video. I think you guys are going to really want to pay attention here because this is a theory that I have locked onto for probably since middle of 2023, right? So pretty much 2 years now. Basically that theory, and you can even go back on X and see I've made posts about this since in 2023, like probably May of 2023, where I was like, listen, the evidence is just kind of overwhelming, and maybe it'll be proven wrong in the future. And trust me, I hope it is. No one would love that more than me. I really would love for this to be proven wrong. But the red line that you see, right, the maroon or red line, whatever that color is to you, is representative of the Fed's balance sheet, right? And to keep it simple, right, I don't want to get it too complicated, but when the red line is going up, that means that the Fed is engaging in quantitative easing. When the red line goes down, the Fed is engaging in quantitative tightening. When the red line is doing nothing, that means the Fed is partaking in a neutral balance sheet. Basically, they're selling a little bit, they're adding a little bit. They're basically not real. They're always doing something, but they're really not doing anything to the effect that would affect markets in really any way, okay? And we have had those periods of time also. So going back to 2017, when we saw our first major, probably the biggest altcoin season, you could see that the Fed balance sheet was doing exactly that, right? It was neutral, we could call it, right? It was a little bit of easing, a little bit of tightening, but overall the balance sheet was neutral, which enabled Bitcoin dominance to find a cycle top, which enabled altcoin season to begin, which happened for a very long time, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big months of altcoin season, followed by a couple months of no altcoin season, and then followed by 3 more final months of altcoin season. So literally 9 out of 11 months there was a huge altcoin season, right? It was amazing. That was actually when I first got into the market, was close to the top of that altcoin season. So that's a little background for you on me when I first started my crypto journey. Now, as you can see here, right, when did Bitcoin dominance bottom, right? It found its bottom as soon as the Fed, which was in January of 2018, in February, started to engage in quantitative tightening, which means that the balance sheet runoff was occurring. The Fed was selling treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, okay? Soon as that occurred, Bitcoin dominance found its bottom and started a new bull run, okay? This basically means, in Bitcoin dominance, so that you guys don't know, it means that Bitcoin's outperforming the market. How much of the capitalization of the total crypto market cap does Bitcoin make up? When this goes up, Bitcoin makes up more of it, meaning it's soaking up liquidity from altcoins. I'm sure you all know this by now, as it's been going on for literally the last 3 years. So yeah, back to the point. Bitcoin dominance found its bottom in January of 2018 while QT was just beginning, and then we started a new bull run in Bitcoin dominance. Now, if we go to August of 2019, quantitative easing had started at that point, right? So in 2019, the Fed started to subtly increase their balance sheet once again. What happened? Bitcoin dominance found its macro cycle high, right? It's basically its cycle top high, or very close to it. Ended up double topping up here, but we'll go over that next and why that happened. So as you can see, quantitative easing begins, Bitcoin dominance goes down, right? Now, Bitcoin dominance found a major low here because of COVID, right? So when COVID was in full swing back in, September of 2020, we found a temporary low on Bitcoin dominance where it ended up coming up and making a double top. And actually, for a brief period of time, the Fed did engage in QT also, as you can see, which caused that bottom to come in. But soon as the QE ramped back up again, look what happened. Major top in Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance goes into its massive bear market. We get the 2021, late 2020, early 2021, mid to late 2021 altcoin season. It came in 2 spurts in 2021. You had the January through May altcoin season, and then you had the basically end of July to November altcoin season, okay? That's kind of how that worked. It was a very weird cycle. But again, right, you're seeing the correlation between the Fed's balance sheet and Bitcoin dominance. Now, let's take a look at the most recent times, right? Bitcoin dominance comes down, it accumulates for a very long time, ever since May of 2021 all the way until November of 2022. Guess what happens, folks? You know the deal. QE stops, Bitcoin dominance bottoms. QT begins, Bitcoin dominance begins its rise. And as you can see, these lines are getting close to meeting. That's how long this has been going on. So for the last 3 years, we've had almost 3 full years, not quite 3 full years, but we've had quantitative tightening going on in the market. 3 years almost, Bitcoin dominance has done nothing but just go up, grind higher, a slow, painful grind for the altcoins, right? In this time, the altcoins have just bled back to Bitcoin. So as you can see, here we are now. Bitcoin dominance is at the macro 0.786 fib, and QT is still occurring right now as we speak. So in my belief, you will see altcoin season, and I've made this in a past video. You can go watch it. It's right here on my YouTube channel. The real altcoin season, when all of the altcoins, the mid caps, the low caps, the ETH betas, the proof of works, all of those different coins, everything's going to perform. Real altcoin season will begin when monetary policy shifts and quantitative tighten ends. Now, in the meantime, because I've made an ETH video that said that, on the monthly time frame, ETH is setting itself up to start outperforming the market. That can still happen while Bitcoin dominance trades either sideways or even still grinds a little higher, just a little bit, or it just trades sideways. When I say altcoin season, I mean what you see here. This. I'm talking durable, massive red monthly candles. That's altcoin season. These little red candles on the monthly that you see here throughout the last couple of years, everyone thought that was altcoin season. These are people that haven't existed in the space for a long time. Those are just altcoin traps. Those are sell the pumps altcoin seasons, right? It seems like altcoin season, and the behavior is very altcoin season-like. It kind of gets you feeling like, oh my God, this might be it. But it never was it. And you want to know why? None of those pumps were sustainable because the Fed continues to sell off their balance sheet, and the terminal interest rate is still at 4.5, roughly right around 4.5%, right? Anytime that we've had altcoin season, we've had no quantitative tightening and a significantly lower terminal interest rate. We're talking in the 1 to 2% range. So we're just not quite there yet in terms of the monetary policy's correlation to altcoin outperformance. Now, does that mean ETH can still perform? Absolutely, ETH can start soaking up dominance. That doesn't mean the altcoins are going to soak up dominance yet. It just means that ETH is starting to soak up dominance, which is typically the first sign that altcoin season is attempting to have its first. It's like turning the heat on the pan. You know what I mean? The oil's in the pan, you turn the heat on. That's where we're at when it comes to that. Nothing's cooking yet, nothing's happening. You're just heating up the pan. That's it. And you could kind of make that relationship to it in terms of what we're seeing with ETH outperformance. In the charts that I showed on ETH or monthly time frame charts, those can take a lot of time to play out. And it's okay because time is on our side, right? That's totally fine. But we are starting to see those early signs of ETH trying to gain some dominance this year, which is awesome. We want to see that. But overall, in terms of actual real altcoin season, where everything's ripping for 4 to 6 months, maybe 8 months, 9 months, I don't think that's going to happen, folks, until monetary policy durably shifts. And that's been my opinion for a long time. I'm never going to switch it. And hey, listen, maybe this decorrelates at some point, but it hasn't since the beginning of time. The correlation is stronger than any correlation to a monetary system you'll ever find. I mean, the global liquidity with Bitcoin and altcoin dominance is super correlated also, but this is like on another level. Every time Bitcoin dominance bottoms, QT begins. Every time Bitcoin dominance tops, QT is either not happening or is QE going on. So it's just one of those things, folks, where risk assets like altcoins do not outperform Bitcoin in a tight, restrictive monetary policy environment. I mean, this is not rocket science. This has been going on in the stock market for years with companies in the Russell 2000, for example, companies that don't have the ability, the access of capital that a NVIDIA has, these massive cash reserves that these major companies have and these massive amounts of revenue streams that they have. These smaller companies in like the Russell 2000, they don't have that. You know what I mean? They have one revenue stream. They're very reliant on, debt to grow, and getting access to capital is really hard for them. You can kind of think of the altcoins as the Russell 2000, right? And Bitcoin is the S&P 500 kind of thing, or, whatever. It's Microsoft or Apple, whatever you really want to call it. It's a very similar relationship, folks. And when there's a lack of access to capital and there's a shrinkage in the balance sheet by the Fed, you're just not going to get durable altcoin outperformance. But this is something we can track. And I'll tell you what, guys, a lot of projections are saying that quantitative tightening should end at some point. Honestly, they said at the end of Q2, which we're basically at that point. But Q3, Q4, at some point this year, there's a lot of projections out there that show that the Fed wants to end quantitative tightening. You know what I mean? Remember, quantitative tightening is a very, very complicated thing. There's a lot of pieces to it, and a large part of it is the overnight lending between, banks. And obviously that's also, very dependent on the federal funds rate. It's very expensive for these banks to lend money to each other in the middle of the night. So ending quantitative tightening and making sure that there's plenty of bank reserves are a big part in making sure that the banks have their proper reserves. And when those reserves aren't abundant anymore and they become ample, that's when the Fed will start to end quantitative tightening. It's not necessarily linked to, and I know everyone wants to link QT strictly to inflation. They want to link QT strictly to the labor market. I'll be honest with you, it's not linked to inflation in the labor market more than it's linked to the banking system, right? The banking reserves. So you want to definitely do some research on that in terms of how bank reserves work and how the Fed, you'll even notice Powell brings this up a lot. When they bring up the balance sheet, does he bring up inflation or the labor market? No, he brings up, how are the banks looking on their cash reserves? That's what he talks about. And bank reserves are still abundant from what they're saying. And there's a GDP to bank reserve ratio out there that you can try to find to try to track quantitative tightening ending, which is something that I try to do. I'll tell you, it's extremely hard to find the number, because I've sat in the past now and I'm like, man, how could I track? Like, when can I find out when QT is going to end? And there's a ratio. It's GDP to the bank reserve ratio. It's usually when it's below 10, that's when the Fed will, or it gets close to 10, the Fed will typically end quantitative tightening. I think we're around like 11.5 right now, the last time I seen it, which is close, right? You're getting close, right? The Fed doesn't want to have it to where the bank reserves become low because it could cause really big issues in the bond market. So these are things that happened in like 2019, for example. So we'll keep an eye on it, right? We'll keep a close eye on it. Something else that I would like to show you guys, another crazy linkage between altcoin season and the balance sheet, is the others dominance chart, right? It's another incredible correlation here. So as you can see, right, altcoin season via others dominance. So others dominance is the altcoins market cap's outperformance over Bitcoin. And as you can see, we've been in this massive downtrend for a very, very long time. Honestly, this has been, right now as we speak, is like the most accelerated downtrend that we've seen in terms of altcoins just getting crushed against Bitcoin, right? And I know a lot of people bring up this parallel channel right here. Maybe we want to keep an eye on that as, the area where altcoins have bottomed against Bitcoin in the past. I guess we can keep an eye on that. But again, it's all about the quantitative tightening. I don't think this even really matters. If the Fed were to end QT tomorrow, I think this would reverse. I think it'll just continue to bleed down to this level until the Fed shifts monetary policy. But overall, you can see QT begins, altcoins find their top against Bitcoin. Ever since then, the line goes down. QT is happening. All others dominance goes down against Bitcoin. You had this one rally right here. It faded very quickly. This rally, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2023. This is when a lot of those AI coins had gotten released. So this was, if you were around then, you remember that. But one little rally faded away. We're way lower than that now. Again, QT begins back in 2018. Altcoin dominance finds its macro cycle top high. Oh, look at this. Others dominance finds its cycle low and begins altcoin season right when QE begins, right when QT ends and QE begins. So it's the same as the Bitcoin dominance chart, guys. You see the correlation. It's undeniable, right? So I don't know why I hope that maybe, people on Twitter and the people who've been screaming it's altcoin season for years, I really hope that they watch this video so that they actually learn how this all works. I know that they love to post fractals from the past and think that they're just going to play out the same. And, I think they're starting to give up on that. It just none of it's working. Hopefully they start to accept the fact that, this is not just cycles and, these theories. It's not how it works, guys. It's business cycles, it's monetary policy, its correlation into these risk asset markets is undeniable. It's always been that way since the beginning of time, way before crypto ever existed. And it will continue to be that way forever, right? When access to capital is easier and the money printer, I guess you can call it, is on, risk assets are going to outperform higher capped assets. When monetary policy is restrictive, balance sheet is shrinking, and capital is less accessible, you have less risk taking, right? This is very simple stuff. This is like literally economics 101. This is not difficult. I mean, if you worked in banking like I have, then you know that when monetary policy is restrictive and interest rates are higher, banks don't give out as many loans, right? It's like super hard to get people approved for loans at a low interest rate and and a lot of money. It doesn't happen. So it's just capital's less available. Less risk is taken because less capital is available. If a business can't get access to capital as easy, are they going to expand? Are they going to do that big project that they wanted to do? No. Same goes for an individual who wants to do something for themselves. Maybe take out a loan to buy a car, maybe do a school loan of some kind, right? It could be a home improvement loan of some kind. So this is how the world works. This is how the monetary system works. So we're going to continue to track this over time. I don't want to keep the video running too long, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't worry, one day the altcoin outperformance, I'm sure, will come. You got to be patient. You got to hold the right altcoins, right? Which is a very important thing. And just buy the lows and sell the highs, guys. Don't get attached to an altcoin bag, okay? Buy the lows, sell the highs, okay? That's how it's always been. If you want to hold anything long term, then I would recommend maybe holding Bitcoin and maybe an altcoin or two, but we'll just stick with Bitcoin for now. But yep, altcoin season will happen one day. Monetary policy will ease eventually. Be patient, right? I know you got to deal with this in the meantime, this terrible down. Look at this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight months of bleeding back to Bitcoin. Ruthless. But eventually it'll end. Eventually this will reverse. I think even the most bearish people on altcoins believe that. So over here, we just keep it real, right? We're not biased in any direction. We just tell it how it is. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to join the Patreon, the link will be in the description below. Please like and subscribe. Share the video, comment below. And yeah, that's all I got to say, guys. You guys have a good night. Peace.